Hello and welcome to the Urban Permaculture Podcast. I'm Heather with Hogs and Hens Urban Farm, and I have a special guest for you today. We are going to be talking about a fantastic event that is coming up this Saturday, November the 4th. It is a free event to attend, and they have got an incredible lineup of speakers and fun activities in store for you. Now, I could easily introduce our guests, but I always love to let them introduce themselves so they can tell you a little bit about themselves. So without any further ado, Chase.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for having us. I'm Chase from Chasing Dreams Homestead, and I did exactly what Heather says she tries not to do, and I said from the get-go. That's part of it when you're speaking, especially when you're on the fly. But our event is a free event that we put together, 3 years ago now, I think, Mama Dreams?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Just to fill a void. There wasn't really many events in our area of Southern Indiana or even Kentuckiana. And we thought that we ought to do something to try to get people to come together. And the first ones were really small, but probably our favorite because of how much socializing was going on. And that's where our events are going to differ from events like you just went to, IHC. We don't want to be class heavy, lecture heavy. We don't want to look around and see people feeling like they're in high school taking notes and yawning and trying to stay awake. And we see that sometimes when events are super heavy with classes. So our events are a lot more activity-based, demonstration-based, presentation-based, and hands-on. And after going to some other events, that was really what we wanted to zone in on, was doing a lot of hands-on interactive stuff. So that's where we're at with ours.
It's a beautiful thing because so many people learn so many different ways. You know, myself, I am a doer. I learn best if I'm physically engaged in whatever it is I'm learning about.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach me how to weld by telling me what I'm supposed to be doing, but until I physically touched that welder for the very first time and started putting, things together, I didn't understand the concepts at all. So having things like, these demos and these live doing events really is great for somebody like me. And then you've got a really good balanced mix because you've got people that are doing lectures and talking a little bit. So you've got folks that are auditory learners, you got that too. So it's a beautiful blend. What are some of the classes or topics that you're going to be having at the event?
Well, I wish I had my list in front of me because my memory is short.
It's okay.
But I know that Tad Streepy is going to kick it off with putting your garden beds to winter.
Mm-hmm.
He is an organic farmer down in Corydon, Indiana. And I asked him to kick it off because he's big on it. That's just the flyer. It's not the class.
I was going to say, would it help you at all?
No.
Okay.
But he's going to kick it off, putting the garden beds to winter and giving people a lot of tips that he uses, different amendments that he uses, that he knows are slow release amendments that will take time to get into the soil and be ready for spring planting. So Tad's going to kick that off. Shortly after Tad will be Denisha, I believe, doing the jam canning class. A lot of people have asked us for a canning class. This first time around that we're offering a canning class, we're doing water bath canning products.
Perfect.
At our spring event, we will do pressure canning because that's much more time intensive.
Yeah.
And the spring event's going to be a festival type, long, all weekend deal versus a one-day event. Let's see what else. I know Dirk is doing processing rabbits. I'll be doing processing chickens.
Cheers.
Amber's going to do intro to harvest right because a lot of people are interested in freeze dryers. We're interested in freeze dryers. We can't afford one right now, but
Same.
so Amber's going to do that. Karen is going to do her medicinal thing. You saw Karen at IHC. She is just like
Karen
over
Lindur.
the top.
I'm telling you guys, if you have never met Karen Lindur, you are missing out because she is a wealth of knowledge and a ball of energy. She is amazing.
Yes. One of my friends refers to her as a fairy, and it is so fitting because that woman is magic. She's tiny, she's bubbly, full of energy, and passionate. And she's one of the very few lectures that I can sit through and will captivate your attention.
Absolutely. I took like 17 pages of notes in her classes because I was just so thrilled. I thought I knew about herbalism. I thought I knew a lot. I learned that day I did not know a lot about herbalism.
Every video she puts out,
Yes.
every video I learn something new. And I'll sometimes message her with questions. I'll be like, I didn't know you could eat tomato leaves. I thought they were nightshades. And then she'll message me back and give me the whys. And I'm like, there's so much conflicting information online. It's so hard to really know. But knowing a resource like her that I know she's actually ate those in her salad and she's still here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll trust her over the 42 articles I read that conflicted each other online.
Absolutely. We have a pokeweed problem here. We have pokeweed everywhere. in her classes, I learned that you can absolutely make jellies and jams out of
Yep.
pokeweed if you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look forward to picking her brain in the very near future because I
Yep.
might as well take use of all these berries
Yeah.
I have everywhere.
You'll have to check out her YouTube channel because she actually did a video on using the pokeberries. So
That's amazing.
yeah, and she does talk a lot about that conflicting information that's
Mhm.
out there. So that's big. And I had actually checked out some of your podcasts before I came up just to kind of have an idea of what to
Mhm.
expect. And one of the podcasts, the lady was talking about elderberry syrup and boiling it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the beautiful things about Karen, where she talks about don't boil all the good out of it.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't realize you can extract the good with the vinegar and make a simple syrup. And so Karen goes over all that as well.
Right.
It's just the amount of knowledge. And like I said at IHC, I could spend a year and I still wouldn't. I would still
Right.
need more time with her.
Absolutely. Well, and you guys have a lot of things for kids too. It's not
Mhm.
just things for adults. And that's a beautiful thing too because, you know, with events like this, especially with homesteaders, a lot of us have kids and it's really hard to get away without the littles. And if you bring the littles, it's hard to keep them entertained. But you
Right.
guys have planned for that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about planting seeds. And so it's not only planting seeds amongst the adults that have never homesteaded or the adults that were getting a little bit burned out and felt like they needed more encouragement, but it's also about planting seeds with that next generation. And kids are absolutely the next generation of everything because we're all getting older. We're going to be departing at some point, and they're the next wave. So what better way to get kids invested than giving them activities, and they'll hear the adults talking and learn as they're playing. They'll hear us because kids are like sponges. They're better sponges than we are.
It is. Well, and, you know, especially with livestock, getting kids involved in the process and understanding what goes into providing those meals for them, it helps them have a better appreciation for the food they have. And I really feel like it gives them, you know, a beginning or an introduction to loss, because a lot of littles nowadays don't experience loss for the first time until
Right.
somebody they love passes away. And by having, you know, even chickens, you know, when the time comes and the chicken passes, it's a way to introduce that to these kids with a more gentle approach, I think.
Right.
So getting them involved in the homesteading process is great. And there's so many things that are dying art forms, like you said, you know, and I think it's a beautiful thing. You guys are doing a little bit different thing for food, right? So you guys are doing like a potluck or like I forget what you called it.
Yeah,
you
it's
called it exactly a potluck. You called it something else, I thought.
It's like an old-fashioned
Bring in-
pitch-in potluck.
Pitch-in, that's what you call it, a pitch-in.
Yeah, that's what we like to do. I'm donating a hog and a couple of chickens, and Dirk and Natalie are going to donate some rabbits so people can try that as well. I'm donating a Cooney because we're adamant about Coonies being the best hogs for a homestead. It's not necessarily because they give you a massive pork chop, because that is their downside, is they don't. But it's their docile, easygoing temperament it's great around, even in a neighborhood like this. They're not going to be causing a ruckus. They're not going to be tearing things up, you know. And if you've dealt with larger breeds like we have, they'll dig a wallow that would sink a tractor in it, you know. So the Coonies don't do that. They don't root a lot, and we just really want to sell people on the Coonies. And for me, the best way to do that is put the meat in their mouth.
Absolutely.
You know, when they taste how superior that meat is, even though it's a smaller pig, they're gonna be like, wow, I've been missing this my whole life, because we're all used to that dry, pink, store-bought hog meat, you know, that's just like bland, and we got it doctored up and smothered in barbecue sauce. Those dudes are like a well-marbled ribeye. They're just full of natural flavor, and people are gonna be really impressed with them.
And they're, like you said, they're a smaller breed. So for people who have a smaller homestead, it's something that you can still have. Whereas if you have giant, huge hogs, they take up a lot of space. And like you said with the wallow, they create a huge wallow, but they need that because of their size. And, you know, if you've got littles, Coonies are really cute. If you've never seen a Cooney pig, you should look them up because they are absolutely adorable, which sounds funny. I mean,
think they are.
not trying to sell you on a Cooney pig, but you should totally get a Cooney pig if you can, for sure.
Yeah.
Or a couple of them, even better yet, right?
And it's kind of odd to say it, but their whole life, and we have this philosophy with everything we raise for meat. Their whole life is they're treated well. They're happy animals, but Coonies will literally become like a pet to you. Just like you were talking about your chicken when you were showing us around. They're the same way, and so it's kind of odd to say that eventually my pet will be bacon, but it goes that way. But for us, they've got a whole life of happy days and one bad moment that they don't even know is coming, though. And that's the way we like to harvest them, is we don't even want them to be aware of what's going on. No stress, just it's over. Right. And back to the kids, teaching kids the homesteading things and the meat raising aspect. I feel like at least our kids waste food a lot less. And this country has a lot of issues with wasted food while we have people that aren't being fed at all. So that's another reason we really want to encourage kids to get invested into the homesteading. It's more sustainable and there's a lot less waste.
Definitely the case. And with getting the kids involved, and when they see how much work goes into it, like you said, way less food waste.
Mm-hmm.
But when these kids have their friends over for dinner and they tell them like, hey, I raised that pig, I helped my dad butcher that pig, I helped my mom go and pick these chicken eggs, in your dinner, it spreads that knowledge, because kids don't have a filter and they will say what is on their mind, whereas adults sometimes we may hold back. I'm an avid hunter, and it's funny because I have friends that would never eat any of the wild game that I bring home because they are just, oh, that's disgusting. How could you eat Bambi? Or that was,
right.
That pretty little bunny. Well, it's delicious, little bunny. That's how.
Mm-hmm.
But with kids, they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, this is rabbit. You want some? Where I might be like, hey, try this. I think you might like it. What is it? Oh, it's good. It's good. And then tell them it's rabbit later. Kids aren't afraid. And because they have that carefree approach, I think, it really is a good way to get the message out, more so than us as adults.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
You guys have music too, right, at the event?
So we had planned to have a 3-piece band. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't confirm, unfortunately, but we will have music at the end of the event anyhow. Another homesteader, her daughter, actually put together a playlist, so we're going to just have a playlist for the event, so that's pretty cool. And because our events are free, that helped with the budget as well, because we were budgeting for the band, but now we're able to allocate those budgeted monies to other things for the event. So we're going to have that really cool playlist at the end while we're doing the hog roast and everyone's gathered for the big meal at the end. That's one thing we learned in the spring. Don't put your big meal in the middle of the day.
No.
It's chaos getting people through the lines. People get to eating and chatting and then they miss the next class. So we'll never do that again. We'll have a quick, short lunch and then the big meal at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a really good chance to network with folks that you've never met. I know for me, Indiana Homesteading Conference was great because I networked with a lot of folks like you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I met Chase, was at the Indiana Homesteading Conference. In passing, I heard him talking about an upcoming event, and I was like, hey, I need to get you on my show. We should talk about this. Yeah. And while he was talking about it, I Googled him and was reading about the event. I'm like, this is awesome. It's an amazing tool. And there are events like this that are popping up more and more. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
You recognized that need, and instead of saying, man, somebody should do this, you guys just took the bull by the horns and said, we're doing this.
Yeah, and that's kind of like something when we post about the events and we advertise about the events, a lot of people will be like, oh man, that's 3 hours away, I can't come, that's too far. So I always encourage people, and I say, hey, if I don't have obligations and you do an event, I'll come. So I try to encourage them, do that event, plant that seed. Some people will, some people won't, but the more events, the better for the community.
Absolutely. And just what's the name of the event so people know what to look for?
So this one, where our fall ones will always be moving forward, celebrating the harvest. Our spring ones will always be planting the seeds, so we kind of time them with the seasons. I really feel like familiarity is important for people.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to pin down a area that we will always have the events at. We think we have that starting next year, we'll see. But that's what we want to do, is the same name all the time so people start to memorize it.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And if people want more information about the event, where can they go to find that?
So we have a Facebook page, Celebrating the Harvest, dedicated just to the event.
Mm-hmm.
We have our Facebook group, Chasing Dreams Homestead. We also share a lot of information in there about the event. We have our YouTube channel, Chasing Dreams Homestead. We talk about it a lot on there. Sometimes I feel like I talk about it a ton more than anyone should, but I always inevitably find somebody that says, I didn't know you were going to have this event. I didn't know about this event. So I have to constantly bring it up. It's always unique to see people saying, I didn't know. And I'm like, I posted it 20 times in that group. How did you not know?
Yeah. The same with the Indiana Homesteading Conference. Yeah. That was a thing for me. It was the day of, and I had friends reaching out. They're like, wait, you're giving a talk somewhere? What are you talking about? And I'm like, starting a garden. And they're like, oh, I didn't know you garden. And I'm like, we have a farm. How do you not know this? Like, well, how? I didn't know. And I'm like, well, I post about it all the time. I have a whole Facebook page. I have a website. Like, I have all these things. And they're like, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that social media is not the same as human contact, you know? And, it's a great thing what you're doing, because it's a way for people to come together. Learning things on YouTube is amazing. Right. It's a great way that you can do things from home. But learning them in person from somebody that you can ask questions live in the moment, say, hey, why did you do that? What do I need to know about that? And then you get the explanation, which helps that really stick.
Yep, absolutely.
So what you're doing is beautiful. I think it's an amazing thing. Guys, if you have not yet, you absolutely need to look up Chase and his family on YouTube, find them on Facebook, look them up everywhere you can, because truly they've got some really cool things going on. So look for Chase and Dreams. You will not regret making that decision. I guarantee it.
I appreciate
So
it.
anything else anybody needs to know? Address. They should probably know the time and address. Yeah.
So November 4th, 4109 South Underwood Road. It'll be 8 to 5 for the main lectures and demonstrations, and then after that's the after party and hog roast. Like you said, tons for the kids to do. We're actually doing a Youth Homesteaders Olympics, so we're really excited about that. We're not going to give away all the different events that'll be at it, but one event is going to be a hay bale toss. We're going to keep raising a bar like a limbo bar until the kids can't chunk it over. So that's going to be fun. Yeah, like I said, we're big on getting the kids involved. And like you said, as a parent, you're like, man, I really want to go, but where am I going to put the kids? And kids aren't going to want to sit through lectures all day. So we saw that need, and we wanted to really encourage families to come, because there'll be plenty for kids to do to have fun.
That is amazing. All right, folks, it is a free event. That means you don't have to go to a ticketing website and buy a bunch of tickets. You don't have to reserve your space. You can just show up, right?
Yes, ma'am. Just show up. Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing. It is free, no charge. It is a full day of entertainment for you and the kids. Bring a covered dish to share. It is a potluck, but you got to try that Cooney. We talked about those pigs, and I'm telling you, if you've never had Cooney, it is a flavor like no other.
Yeah.
It is the pork of all porks, I think, for sure.
Yeah, what is it they talk about, the Wagyu beef? I mean, it's very similar. A high-fat meat is going to have more flavor. It's the same reason I don't skin my chickens when I process them. I like to preserve that fat, so I keep the skin on them. And it's the same way with the pork. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Chase. I am so glad you're here. Mama Dreams, it's a pleasure to have you here today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
And guys, check them out, Chase and Dreams. Find them on Facebook, find them on YouTube, and make sure you make plans to go this Saturday, November 4th, to their event.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dreamers, that was a really neat experience, and I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. As always, till next time, keep dreaming.